Hey, y'all, I'd like to talk about Bazzite today, but here's a sneak peek at the February wallpaper for Bluefin. Check it out next week. Um, I miss this because I've been so busy, but ever since Valve announced all the SteamOS 3.0 stuff, uh, I've been watching the discussions on Reddit and things like that about where does Bazzite fit, and the team even put out a statement, and I've been thinking about it a lot, and um, enough to make some comments about it because I feel like a lot of people's reactions tend to be very like traditional, more distro based, right? Where it's like, no, but SteamOS versus this, and this is better because of this. This is better because of that. I think the difference that people are missing out on is there's a difference between a project and a product. Um, and SteamOS is a product, and Bazzite is a project. So products have expectations, like people pay money and expect a certain level of service, right? Whereas with a project, it is a volunteer run thing, right? It's a thing that we do and we go at our own pace, and that allows us to kind of explore different niches in an ecosystem. So SteamOS 3 on those hardware devices with those manufacturers is going to provide that kind of product experience that people want, right? Like as great as Bazzite can be, it's also nice that you can give that thing to a friend and know that it's not your fault if it breaks, right? So that's just kind of the difference there, and it's also interesting because due to the way that market works, they have to have things like super long-term support and testing and hardware validation and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm recording this in my basement, so that's kind of the difference there as far as the expectations of what a market expects from a product and what ultimately is a really cool thing that a bunch of Linux nerds did. But it is all connected. However, I think that's why it's important to talk about the ecology. This is why I picked things like the dinosaurs, right? It's that serves one niche and we serve another niche. So as great as that is, uh, a product, open source and Linux and everything as a whole moves much, much faster. So the ability for us to consume those newer kernels, newer tech that comes in and do that gives us a place where we can thrive that is not really directly competing with SteamOS 3, if that makes sense to you, right? Because ultimately, the experience is the end user experience, right? So that is the payload, your video games, right? So when people are hyper focusing on SteamOS versus Bazzite, like, don't forget that our job is to play video games. Like, that is why we're doing this. So, but I get it. I've been that Linux user where you just get so, oh, we're doing it, right? So you get that kind of passion where you feel like you have to defend a thing without, um, but you can't forget that we're trying to get rid of operating systems. That's my whole thing. But by making it invisible to the end user, right, and focusing on that, right, and I think Bazzite brings a little bit of that product focus to a project. I've read some of the articles where they say Bazzite feels like a finished product. It doesn't feel janky. Um, Obviously there's always going to be problems, but it's working well for a lot of people. Um, and we have to remember that that's because of this model that we've chosen, right? Like we've seen other parts of Linux go through this where all of a sudden it got really, really good due to a generational leap in reliability and our ability to deliver software really, really quickly to end users. And that's where Bazzite is going to thrive, I think. Alongside CashewOS, Nabara, your favorite thing, like none of that even matters. I think those of you that are starting new in Linux are soon going to realize that it's just all the it's just all the same crap, man. Like the SteamOS, I think a lot of people are from reading these Reddit comments and stuff from more non-Linux things people have high expectations of SteamOS, and those of us that have been around the block know that like it's literally the same stuff, and it's part of a life cycle of things. They're not going to magically show up and your NVIDIA drivers work. But what they will do is that product focus that they have will give hardware companies and all those folks a platform to target, right? So if peripheral manufacturers want to work well on portables that with SteamOS, they're going to have to get their stuff into Linux. And in order to do that, they're going to do it in the open because that's the way business is done, which means we're going to get it too. In fact, it'll be our job to help with that pipeline and the testing and the Bazzite people who are off exploring different use cases and different hardware platforms that might be able to help find a bug or things like that, that just help having that extra diversity of hardware be able to feed into that same system. It's wins for everyone. So didn't want to get overly preachy on this one, but I honestly think that we should move past the whole idea of branding things that are just GitHub branches. Those of you that understand how distributed systems work, at the end of the day, it's the same code. So hopefully that'll clear things up. And I don't speak for the entire team. These are just my personal thought. I probably should have started with that. But anyway, enjoy and have a great weekend. Bye.